predictions. Josh Allen's going to get sacked 13 times. Tua's going to throw to Tyreek Hill for 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jalen Waddle will probably get 1 touchdown, but only 106 yards on 5 receptions. And the Miami Dolphins will win the game 42-3.
You know, let's not do an hour-long one if we can help it.
Yeah, no, I need to get to bed, yeah.
Welcome back to another edition of The House That Allen Built. This is episode 44. I'm Scott Kinmartin. With me, as always,
Greg Vollmer.
And today we're going to talk about the Buffalo Bills game at home against the previously undefeated Miami Dolphins. Your prediction from last week was
37-31 in overtime, Bills.
My prediction was 34-24 Bills in regulation. We both predicted, I predicted a 10-point win. You predicted 6-point win. It was more than that. The Bills were 2.5-point favorites. I think the over-under was like in the 50s, and we ended up scoring 48 ourselves, 48-20. It hit the over. And the Buffalo Bills are now 3-1 and sit atop the AFC East. If the Bills had lost, the Dolphins would have a 2-game advantage over the Bills. Now, not only are they even, but the Bills have the tiebreaker with the head-to-head victories.
It was a beautiful mid-70-degree day in Orchard Park, New York. Blue skies. Stadium was full, louder than it's probably ever been, according to Sean McDermott. And it seemed like it, I mean, why not? It seemed like it was loud, especially with all the crap we've had to hear for the last 2-3 weeks about how awesome the Dolphins are. And everyone showed up in full force to witness an absolute ass kicking and in front of Bills Mafia. It looked like a fun day. I wish I would have been there, to be honest.
Holy crap.
That was about as perfect football weather as you could get.
Now, the game went almost perfectly. I'd say that was one of the best games of Josh Allen's career and the best game the Bills have had in quite a long time. Dorsey called probably a near perfect game. McDermott on defense is coaching much better than I feel like Leslie Frazier did. They're more aggressive. They're just lockstep with each other. I love what Terrell Bernard is doing alongside Matt Milano. They are both just flying around, covering everything over the middle. Now, he's not a pterodactyl like 6'5", like, Tremaine Edmonds, but he went and got his bag, and now he's stuck in Chicago, and we don't miss him at all.
How are things for the Bears going this year?
That is not looking pretty. Actually, it's looking pretty for the first overall pick, the first and second.
There was a lot of fantasy hype on Justin Fields this offseason, and I bought into it. I was like, well, I mean, he was going in like the 5th, 6th round sometimes, maybe even earlier in mock fantasy drafts. And everyone was buying into the hype. He looked like he was improving last year.
No. It's not just that. It's that Chicago was starting to let him play quarterback as a dual threat and run around and then make plays happen. That's where he's at his best. And it's like they forgot that when this season started. And that was his best game.
More. They looked like they had a connection in preseason, that things were flowing. And then the season started, and then they were the same old dysfunctional Chicago Bears.
Chicago has Carolina's first-round pick, which is probably going to be the second pick overall because they're 0-4. So Bryce Young really needs a wide receiver 1. I wonder where they could get one, where they could maybe trade for one. I'm thinking maybe in Chicago where DJ Moore had left because he didn't want to play there. Wonder if DJ Moore probably should have stayed.
He's a 1,200 yard per year receiver waiting to happen with 7-8 touchdowns, and he just can't find a quarterback. Like, can you imagine if he had a legitimate quarterback throwing him the ball?
He might be like a Terry McLaurin if he had a quarterback throwing in the ball well. I mean,
Terry McLaurin doesn't have a quarterback either, and he's continuing to do,
Howell, there's still a chance that he'll do something?
Well, yeah, I'm speaking more before this season. Sam Howell looks like he could be something, but before this season, Terry McLaurin's had nothing, and he's produced.
Absolutely.
We went on a little fantasy tangent there.
We did. So let's go back to this.
Back to the good stuff. Speaking of Sean McDermott, on WGR, the week leading up to the Dolphins game, Mike Shope said something that really resonated, made a great point. This really was like the ultimate test for Sean McDermott. Now that he's obviously taken over play calling on defense, everyone that's a Bills fan knows this by now. There has been a lot of, I think, murmurs, maybe to say it lightly, of like, what would Josh Allen look like with an offensive-minded coach, like a Kyle Shanahan of the world, or the offensive coordinator for the Lions, his name escapes me, but like all these up-and-coming offensive coordinators and coaches in the league, when things like the 13 seconds or the different various meltdowns or letdowns that we have witnessed, albeit small amounts compared to the success we've had in the last 4 or 5 years. I want to preface it with that. Nonetheless, meltdowns that we've seen every year. This was really McDermott's time to shine and prove that he is one of those defensive geniuses, right? Like, everyone was on how awesome McDaniels is going through leading up to this game. And it's all about the Dolphins, and rightly so, putting up 70 points against one of the worst teams in the league. And is Mike McDaniels an offensive genius? And can they be stopped without even having Waddle playing last week and they still put up 70 points? This was McDermott's time to come in and prove that, like, look, I can scheme up some things too, and I'm still a coach to be feared in the league. And for all intents and purposes, he came out and he passed with flying colors. If it is a test, he passed with flying colors. And to the point where McDaniels, after the game, if you're a lip reader,
I respect the F out of you.
I've given some criticism to McDermott. Going to give him flowers where he deserves flowers. I just wanted to give that shout out to WGR, just because I thought that was the perfect lead up to the game, is that this truly was like a mano-a-mano type of thing. Can McDermott, live up to his past of being a very, very solid defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers before we hired him? And he did it and then some. I think he had a hell of a day, called a great game, in addition to being a head coach of the team. Unbelievable. It was unbelievable all around, and it started with him and calling a great defensive game plan.
Don't forget, McDermott was also the defensive coordinator for the Eagles. The biggest thing was he coached under Andy Reid. And the reason why the Chiefs have maintained what they have all these years is Andy Reid. He's a head coach, but he also makes the play calls. So they're not going to get rid of a head coach unless he's doing horribly. And in this case with McDermott, that's the only thing I fear, is we're going to keep getting these coordinators that Josh Allen's going to get promoted, like Dable. And then we're going to have to keep doing this every couple of years and worry about, is he going to be as good? And after this weekend where Brian Dable in prime time just so pissed off at Daniel Jones that he's throwing tablets at.
What a difference a year makes, man.
What a difference a good quarterback makes. Daniel Jones isn't terrible. He reminds me of like an inadequate Eli Manning, where he'll have games with 3 or 4 picks and 2 fumbles, and you're like, what the hell? Then he'll have a game where he can roll out and if he has protection, do well. But Daniel Jones hasn't had any protection. He if he wasn't fleet-footed, like if he couldn't run, he would have literally nothing to offer, because they're just killing him.
But isn't it amazing though? At the end of last season, we were talking about how Brian Dable is a quarterback whisperer, maybe, of sorts. Clearly, he was
coach of the year.
He turned things around. They brought in they bring in Joe Shane. They're kind of like doing the whole kind of like the Panthers, the Carolina or the Buffalo Panthers or the Carolina Bills, or however you want to say it. That intertwined.
We were plucking everything off of Carolina.
And now there's that intertwined relationship between the Giants and the Bills. And it's like, are they going to do it the right way? Kind of like the Bills have, and have a process, trust the process kind of a thing. But like how crazy, it's like how much of a difference a year makes. Because now you look at their season now, a month into it, where we just turned the calendar to October, and it looks like the sky's falling on them. It's just unbelievable. And it is. You heard a lot of it's a week-to-week league. You've heard that thrown around a lot this last couple of weeks leading up to the Dolphins game and post Dolphins Bills. It's a week-to-week league, and everyone was on the Dolphins one week, and now everyone's on the Bills. And after week 1, everyone wanted to jump off the Bills ship, and now everyone's back on. And things change so quickly in this league. It's unbelievable. But what's going on with the Giants is wild. Now Saquon Barkley's out. He's been out with an injury, and their offensive line is in shambles. But it's just interesting how quickly things can seem to change. So
everybody was on the hype train for the Miami Dolphins, who put up 70 against the lowly Denver Broncos. It was 70-20, second highest scoring game of all time, 726 yards of offense, second most all time. And instead of kicking a field goal to set the record and break the record on running, they kneeled it. So,
probably, honestly, he strikes me as the kind of dude that would have gone for that field goal. I don't know him, but he just strikes me from just seeing his personality and his persona that you see just from what you see through media and whatnot.
It's the Miami Vice
guy that would have kicked that field goal. So I mean, it's a classy move, no doubt. He strikes me as the kind of person that would have kind of put that dagger across the throat. But
you remember a couple of years ago during Lamar Jackson's MVP season, we played them and we were so worried, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And McDermott got with Leslie Frazier and they drew up a blueprint to stop Lamar Jackson. And we did. And then remember Taron Johnson's pick six? Those are the types of things that McDermott can do. And in this case, we knew that Tua was going to get the ball out quickly, that he's accurate, that he hasn't really been touched. You know, he had 5 hits on him in the first 3 games and had only been sacked once. And then in this game, McDermott was able to bring pressure. I think he dialed up pressure like 35% in the Tua's 40 dropbacks. And we had 4 sacks and 9 QB hits in one game.
I mean, honestly, I did not expect the sacks. You know, my brother asked me what I was expecting before the game. And I told him, you know, I said it was like the whole Tom Brady era where Tom Brady eventually learned that if he got it out quick enough, so fast that it would just neutralize your pass rush. And so I thought that we'd maybe use the length of Leonard Floyd and Rousseau and kind of, you know, do some scheming up where you kind of like mix some coverages up, but mainly kind of try to get your hands in the air to bat the ball down and disrupt his timing, you know, especially when he's trying to disrupt his first read. But turns out that they did get pressure and were able to get home and sack him, which I was actually pretty surprised. It goes to show how on fire and how locked in our defensive line is. And I want to start in the middle with Ed Oliver because we've talked about this, it's documented. I had my complaints when we paid him that big money that could have potentially gone to Edmonds. The dude is just playing out of his mind. And apparently the injury last year did hamper him quite a bit. And I didn't take that enough into consideration because Ed Oliver is lassoing him up one hell of a first month in the 2023 NFL season.
Yeah, Ed Oliver's having a great season for sure. And it took him, 3 seasons to really figure it out. And I think also, like he's mentioned in interviews, he was banged up. You know, he's finally like healthy, motivated, happy, settled in. He knows the defense very well and they believe in him. And I think that's really what he wanted, was somebody to believe in him. You know, in Houston, he was the guy. You enter the pros and you're like, you get knocked down a few pegs and then you realize you have to earn your keep. And after his first contract, everyone was wondering what was going to happen if we were going to pay him, and we did. And he's actually being underpaid still.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing to see this happening, because, and I hope it, cross your fingers, I hope it continues to happen. And I don't see any reason why it shouldn't, but you see so often where you pay these guys and the opposite happens. So it's so refreshing to see this happen. He seems like a great dude. Seems like he's got a lot of energy. I think there were always glimpses, leading up to this contract that we paid him, of him being a potential game changer, but we never saw him be a consistent game wrecker. And now he's being a consistent game wrecker. And then with Rousseau and his length, known as Groot on one side, and then that sneaky pickup with Leonard Floyd, who was just sitting there for any team to get. I bet Bean lays his head on his pillow every night and probably smiles before he has his sweet dreams that he picked up Leonard Floyd before the season started as some Von Miller insurance. Because now all the talk of the town, other than the fact that we just put up 48 on the Dolphins, is what's this defensive line going to look like when we get Von Miller back? And it's just, we're in a good spot right now.
The depth this year is better than it was last year when they were predicted to be the Super Bowl favorites and win it. Obviously, that fell flat with DeMar Hamlin and just other injuries and Von Miller going down. There's an injury in this game that we need to talk about. Good thing we've had depth, because Kyer Elam has been inactive the first 4 weeks and everyone's up in arms because he was such an early draft pick and we invested in him. And maybe he doesn't fit our scheme.
Up for this. Everyone has the right to be up in arms. We traded up for this man. We traded up.
We did. But remember, Christian Benford, who is starting in his place, was a 6th rounder, right? They hit on that pick. It happens. I mean, look at Brady was a 6th round pick. There are people, look at Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy doing well enough to keep his team 12-0 when he's a starter in the regular season.
Yeah.
It's more about fits and time. Sometimes, like Jordan Love, you sit back for 3 years and then you figure it out. There were guys that were ahead of the game or ahead of him on the depth chart. And now, because of an injury, a season-ending Achilles injury to Tre'Davious White, unfortunately, he was obviously very distraught. It was non-contact. Yeah. He had turned himself and just, you see him lose his footing and kind of popped up, and you could see he put no pressure on that and got down through his helmet, and immediately you knew.
I wasn't seeing the game live. I was listening to it on my earpiece while I was working on Sunday, because I'm not being able to watch the games right now for the time being, and listening to the call by Chris Brown as it happened. It sounded so dramatic as it was, because he was describing on the field, he threw his helmet, he was yelling, people were trying to console him. And so it was just the way it was described via radio, where you're not watching it, you're only hearing the reaction from Chris Brown and Eric Wood. And so it obviously sounded very just traumatic. And then you watch, and then I got my sister-in-law recorded the game for me, so I got to watch the actual broadcast again and on CBS, and then seeing it happen then on the rerun. It was a little bit like it's so unassuming, right? Like even when it's unassuming, like Aaron Rodgers, like all of a sudden you don't think anything happened, and then he kind of shakes his head at the sideline and then sits down. And like with Trey, it just all of a sudden you could tell he looked back, and then that seems to happen with the AC with the Achilles. They look back.
I mean, it's a band on the back of your leg. So when they put you on your stomach and they squeeze your calf, your foot normally would move. That muscle in the back part of your heel, right? That goes up to your calf. They know right away. He knew right away because you can't put the pressure on it. And so that's why he sat down and didn't get up. That's why you saw Aaron Rodgers stand up and then he just sat right back down like, there's my season.
Yeah, getting the description on the radio just made it seem, it made it as traumatic as I'm sure it was for him in that moment and the team. But seeing it on the broadcast, because they kind of cut away from it, it almost took away from the, in the moment, just the pain of it all. But because it's such an unassuming injury. He's just 1 minute he's following the fastest wide receiver in the league, and the next minute he kind of just he stops in his tracks and kind of pulls up and looks behind him as if, because you get this feeling of what was that. I'm sure I can't even imagine what the sensation is of your Achilles snapping. And then and next thing you know, he's down and everyone's around him. But it would have been the perfect day, and people can be like, you can't have it all in Buffalo, right? That wouldn't be the Buffalo way. There's got to be something that happens, and other than what would have been just the perfect October 1st day of football in Buffalo, that was the one damper.
Yeah, I mean, there were a handful of plays that needed to be made by other guys. So obviously Dane Jackson and Christian Benford were out there. Then Benford got banged up a bit. So you had Cam Lewis come out. Taron Johnson was out there in the slot, obviously.
We already got Poyer out because he's dealing with a
True. Poyer should be back. Hyde had a great game. He had 5 tackles and an interception, another pass defense. I mean, he's playing good ball. Now, Poyer really wasn't playing that well to begin with. He started to play better the game he got hurt in. Of course, that's how it works. Speaking of injuries and coincidences like that, last year on Thanksgiving, I think when Trey White finally came back, and a lot of it was mental because it had been pretty much a year. Von Miller went out. It was like 10 plays in, they played together, maybe 9. And now, just as Von Miller's coming off of PUP, Tre'Davious White goes on IR for the season. So they're not going to play together again. Maybe next year they will, hopefully.
We may, as a Bills fan base, unfortunately, as sad as it is, we might not ever get to see Trey, Hyde, Poyer, and Vaughn all together on the field. And that sucks.
Well, no, especially considering Hyde's contract will be up after this year. I assume they'll re-sign him. Like he's gonna, I just can't picture him anywhere else. Maybe Green Bay again. No, I don't see him going anywhere else, but this would be his last year on his current contract. So
these guys love the team. They love the coach. They love Brandon Beane. They love the city, and they love playing for Josh Allen. So even though money talks and bullshit walks, these guys don't want to leave. These guys don't want to leave Buffalo, and I think it was that way with Jordan Poyer in the offseason. He didn't want to leave, but he was also in a tough situation where he knew that he was getting underpaid and he wanted to test the market out for the first time in a while. and it didn't work out the way he wanted it to, but ultimately he was still happy because he got to stay where he really wanted to, and that was Buffalo. He is aging, clearly. It sucks because he's not at his peak anymore. Either is Hyde. These guys are not in their physical peak anymore. They're not in their prime. That's just facts. They're still amazing players.
33 as a safety or a corner in the league is not the same as 33 as a defensive tackle. You've got someone like Daquan Jones, who's from Johnson City, New York, grew up a Bills fan, went to Penn State, so in the Northeast, and drafted by Tennessee. Good guy. Comes in here, what was it, like a 2-year, $16 million, $17 million. But he had a sack in that game. He's done well in the middle. He's very happy. Look at Gregory Groot, right? He got banged up, but he had 2 sacks in that game. It's his first one this year, but I believe finished the contest with 3 tackles, 2 sacks, and a pass defense. The game marks his 4th career multi-sack performance and first this year. So in 5 career regular season games against Miami, Rousseau has recorded 5.5 sacks.
Of this season from Groot. You're going to be seeing a lot of this as he's getting done celebrating a sack, because that man is going to get paid.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think the Bills, they've had the Dolphins number in general. They've had 9 of their last 10 regular season games against Miami be wins, and most of those have been pretty dominant.
And Josh Allen is what, 6-1 now or 7-1 as at home against the Dolphins? I believe 6-1.
At home, yeah, I don't have that. Probably.
I believe it is 6-1 now. Yeah, it's either 6 or 7-1.
Under McDermott, they are 12-2 now, including the playoffs against the Dolphins, with a point differential of plus 177.
That is very impressive.
It's crazy to think
almost
that the
like
Bills...
Dolphins fans are starting to feel like we did against the Patriots all those years. It's not fun getting dominated by one particular team in your division. I suppose when I'm complaining about week 1 losses against the Jets and bitching about Josh Allen making all those turnovers and wondering if he's somehow reverted back to the 2019 Josh Allen or 2018 Josh Allen, the wild card against the Texans Josh Allen, or wondering how distracted he is, I should remember that there are some damn good things that this regime is doing right now, and we do need to smell the roses while it lasts, because those roses aren't going to always bloom every year, and eventually the Josh Allens of the world won't be playing anymore here, and the Brandon Beans of the world won't be GMing anymore in Buffalo, and the McDermotts of the world won't be coaching in Buffalo. So I think even though every fan base, and I'm included in this, that you can nitpick the negatives, things like this, like domination that we're seeing, and grass is always greener type of thing. I struggle with that. The grass is always greener, and comparison's the thief of joy. I struggle with that in my own life.
This era with the Bills is the closest thing to the 90s dynasty team that we had over any time in the franchise history, over 50 years. It's cool because we shouldn't take it for granted. It's fun to watch. Of course, that week 1 loss was not fun, and you saw Josh Allen implode with 4 turnovers. But since then, he's had 1 turnover, and it was on a ball thrown to Gabe, I think, and it was like up in the air. It was an iffy throw.
Yeah. And that speaks to his maturity.
Yeah, Allen knows he's his own worst critic, but he also knows how to correct things, and he has the highest completion percentage in the entire league, and it's the highest of his career. And he was named Offensive Player of the Week for the AFC again, and he's done it every time he plays Miami. I swear.
Yeah, well, at least Dolphins fans got to have their Super Bowl in September. That's their yearly Super Bowl in September. I hope you guys enjoyed September, Dolphins fans. It is now October. We turn to the next month in the calendar year. So I hope you enjoyed your special month. Maybe we should make ribbons for the September month for Dolphins fans, but hope you enjoyed it while it lasted.
So this is already Allen's 12th time in his career getting this weekly honor of Offensive Player of the Week. And guess how many of those 12 have been against Miami?
9 or 10?
No, 5, but still 5. Okay. He's won 5 AFC Player of the Weeks against Miami. And he's 9-2 in the regular season against them and 1-0 in the playoffs. He's totaled 39 touchdowns, 34 passing, 5 rushing to just 10 turnovers. That's a 109.2 passer rating, including his first career perfect rating of 158.3 on this game on Sunday.
Yeah,
he's thrown for 2+ touchdowns in all 12 games against Miami, which is now the longest streak by a quarterback against a single opponent in NFL history.
He's a Dolphin Slayer. He is. Yeah.
But yet they're going to sit here and say Tua's better. Tua's good.
Going just real quick, I just want to just kind of tie the bow on what I was kind of getting a little sentimental there. But like the whole grass is always greener thing. I struggle with that. I can overreact. And part of that is being a fanatic. The best fan is a fan that keeps a level head, even keel. And it's
Are you calling me the best fan?
Well, you are more even keel than I am for sure. I get a little bit more roller coaster up and down. Again, I don't even want to utter the words, but the things that have been the darkest moments in the last 5 years, and the darkest moments have been dark. But wins like the one we saw this past Sunday, or wins like we've seen against the Commanders or the Broncos, and then I mentioned some bottom feeders here, but we've also beat some really good teams, beating the Chiefs in the regular season in the last 2 years. Yeah, you do need to still count your blessings. That's something I got to remind myself of, because it could be much, much worse. We could be a Carolina Panthers. We could be Denver Broncos fan base right now. We could be I'll even say the Chargers fan base, because they are a team that seemingly has all the pieces, but they can't ever put it together, and they choke away things like it's their job. And the Minnesota Vikings, such a similar history and fan base to the Bills, and like they're struggling right now. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we do need to count our blessings, and it could always be worse. It really could. We get these days like we just got on Sunday, and 15 years ago, we would have been praying. 10 years ago, we would have been praying for something like this. So I'll get off my little sentimental soapbox there.
All right, well, then let's keep praising Josh Allen, since this is the house that Allen built. Josh Allen tallied his third career game with at least 4 touchdown passes and 1 rushing touchdown. He becomes the third player in NFL history to tally 3 such games, joining Drew Brees, who had 4, and Aaron Rodgers with 3. So Josh Allen tallied a perfect passer rating of 158.3 for the first time in his career. Now, that's the highest you can get in a single game.
He's a man on a mission after week 1. I think he probably heard the noise. He probably heard the critics. He'll say he didn't, and that, it's just on to the next week. And the most important game is the next game on the schedule. And I don't even know who we play after this game, but it's this next game's most. He'll say all the right things. That he was hearing some of the talk. That the team was hearing some of the talk. It's true. The way they reacted to the whole emoji thing. They listen. They look at things.
Yeah, I'm sure people showed it or printed it as they're walking through the tunnel. Either way, they knew it was happening. So anything that can be bulletin board material or something to fuel the fire.
He took it to heart. And yeah, we all know what this man can do when he doesn't make dumb decisions. And he made dumb decisions week 1. He did, because the only way you lose against the Zach Wilson-led Jets team, and this is no slight against their defense, because we know that they are a unbelievable unit, but the only way you lose that game is if he makes dumb decisions, and he did.
In this game, he was 21 of 25, 84%, which is a franchise record now, for 320 yards. So in 21 completions, he had 320 yards.
As Jim Kelly said, he's going to break all my records. He's going to break all the records.
He's breaking NFL records, not just Jim Kelly's records. He had more touchdowns than incomplete passes. So as far as rushing goes, James Cook the last several weeks has been really good. This game, he had 12 rushes for 29 yards. Wasn't anything great, but it set up a lot of those passes. And then you could bring in someone like Murray and Harris, and between the two of them, they had 10 rushes to James Cook's 12.
How about Murray? That's all you need. What a warrior, man. He
runs hard.
The dude just keeps on going. He just keeps on going from team to team, playing well.
I think he's going to be the next Frank Gore, and he's a lot taller. He runs super hard and fast. And I told you at the beginning of the year, I like him in the red zone. He's running between the tackles. It doesn't matter where it is on the field. And I
wish he was back in his prime on the Oakland Raiders on my fantasy team again, for crying out loud.
So as far as rushing, Josh Allen only had 4 rushes, but he did have that touchdown with the celebration, which was nice. And Stephon Diggs now had his 3rd game, I believe, with 3 touchdowns and 6 receptions, 120 yards, and 7 targets. Gabe Davis had a touchdown again. That's his 3rd game in a row with a touchdown.
Off of an absolute bullet.
3 receptions for 61. So he was 3 of 3 on his targets, and that was a nice catch by Gabe right in the corner of the end zone. James Cook, how about that for 48 yards? He took that one screen pass where he had several options and just dumped it off.
Just a great improvisation by Allen to use his eyes and body language to kind of manipulate the defense and then find Cook on the sidelines there. Beautiful.
Yeah, and if we're looking
and that pass that Allen threw to Gabe Davis for that touchdown had so much afterburn on it that it damn near carried Gabe Davis into the stands.
yeah. I mean, we know Allen has a big arm. One of his big weapons that they finally got back to using, not that he had a ton of yards, but Kincaid, he was back to getting 5 targets. So far this year, he had 4 in week 1, 6 in week 2, 2 in week 3, and 5 in week 4. So far, he's got 15 receptions in 4 games, which is top 6 all time for a rookie tight end. He's trending that way. Obviously, we keep looking at Sam Laporta, who's breaking those records, and we can't really compare him yet because I think when it's all said and done at the end of the year, at the end of their careers, Kincaid's going to be just fine. And I think it's nice to see that they got him 5 targets at least. And if they do that every game and he gets 30 yards, but we win by 30, I'll take it.
As long as the results stay the way they are, we should not complain. I think the narrative around a person like Kincaid, whether it be Kincaid or Kaiir Elam, there's this narrative that we put training wheels on our rookies, and then we see people like Laporta producing like they are. And again, the comparison is the thief of joy thing, but it just feels like we've got this kind of this perception that we put training wheels on our rookies. And so I think that there's just this like yearning to be like, let's see this dude get unleashed. Like we traded up for him, just like we traded up for Kaiir Elam last year. Like let's see him get an 80-90 yard day on 8-9 receptions and a touchdown or 2. And maybe that'll come. We're still very young in the season. It's very, we're in the infancy of this season. It's a long trek. It's a marathon. I think that there's that trepidation, that there's that like kind of that impatience of just knowing that the history of how the rookies are handled on this team. Now it's all based on situation. And for the Lions, they're down Jamison Williams, one of their draft picks. They're a high capital draft pick.
He's back now because that whole gambling suspension was lifted.
But they clearly needed help on the wide receiver end because past Amon-Ra St. Brown, there wasn't a whole lot to throw to over the last month. And so, of course, you're going to have to, can you imagine what their offense would probably look like if they didn't have Laporta step up like he has in the last month? So it's situational based, And
it's nice. I mean, and Hawkinson's done something for them. But speaking of tight ends, I mean, Knox, right? He only had 1 target, 1 reception, but that 12 yards earned him the angry run of the week for Good Morning Football. Knox had 1 target to Kincaid's 5, but you don't hear people complaining about him not getting the ball more. You take advantage of your situation. When you get the ball, do something with it.
Every time I watch Kyle Brandt's angry run segment, I'm like, I swear he's going to run out of breath. And then he just somehow holds on throughout that whole segment. And you can just hear him like reloading. It's like his lungs must be like, somehow he just keeps on going. Like, it's just like, oh my God.
One of these days he's going to have a heart attack or a brain aneurysm on set. I mean, he's in good shape, Kyle Brandt, but it's just fun. Yeah, that energy. And what's funny is he made that call for the Bills when they picked Terrell Bernard. And he was like, "Oh, Super Bowl champion."
He'll be the first rookie to get drafted, to go to the Super Bowl or whatever.
Well, maybe that didn't happen, but still, the fact that he made that pick and then he's playing lights out, I love it.
I'm sure. I'm sure Kyle Brandt loves it. Yeah, that's a cool thing. He took a bite of the wing right there.
On offense, that was basically it. Obviously, we know Diggs was the big deal.
God, I wish I had Diggs on the fantasy team.
Good thing you didn't need Tyler Bass much this week. I mean, he did kick and make both of his field goals. One of them was over 50 yards again. Yeah, 6 extra points. I mean, there you go. Hold on. 6 extra points. That's 12 fantasy points right there.
That's another player. And kickers, kickers need love too, right? And punters, as Pat McAfee would say. That's another player that I'm sure Brandon Beane thinks about. Where he's laying his head on his pillow after a long day's work. And he's just like, God, I'm so glad we got a kicker like Tyler Bass. Like, you don't have to worry. He's consistent.
No, with extra points, he's 97.7%. He's missed 4 in 4 years. He's very good. And then field goals. Look at over 50. He's 11 of 16. How crazy is that? I mean, that's somebody that you can depend on. It's a weapon all over the field, pretty much. And on the kickoffs, you notice on kickoffs and field goals, he only takes like 2 to 3 steps. He's got a leg that big that he doesn't need to take those 5 or 6 steps to kick off. Yeah. Plus, also, I
And
hate the kickoffs now.
he doesn't look big. He looks like a smaller guy.
He is smaller, 5'10", 183. He's a couple inches shorter than you and about your weight, right?
Yeah.
A little heavier.
Yeah, a little heavier, yeah.
Sam Martin, speaking of special teams, Sam Martin only needed to punt twice, and he averaged 46.5 yards. He had one inside the 20. I think it was like inside the 5 or something. If we go back to Diggs, he led the game with 6 receptions for 120. As we know, it's his 4th career game with 3 TDs and his 3rd with the Bills. So his 3 games with 3 receiving touchdowns now passes Lee Evans for the most in franchise history.
Wow.
With 734 career receptions, Diggs has surpassed Kelvin Johnson, 731, and Santana Moss, 732, for the 49th spot on NFL's all-time receptions list.
Nice.
Top 50. And he's got years to go. That is cool. Let's see any other little tidbits here. We've got Allen surpassed Cam Newton and has now totaled the 3rd most offensive TDs, 188, through a player's first 6 seasons in NFL history. Allen notched a 40th rushing touchdown in his NFL career. Allen tied Jack Kemp 40 for 3rd on the NFL all-time list among quarterbacks, behind number 2, Steve Young, with 43, and Cam Newton 75. So that means Allen needs 35 more to catch up to Cam Newton and 36 to pass him. So that means if Allen continues to average 7 to 9 rushing touchdowns a year for the next 5 years, he will break Cam Newton's record with the most rushing touchdowns in NFL history. Now, the way Jalen Hurts is going, he might end up breaking that record. He gets a lot of 1-yarders with the tush push. 55-yard touchdown by Stephon Diggs on that play where he broke those tackles was the longest since 2021, and it marks the 3rd time in his career that he has tallied 2 receiving TDs in the first half, and first time doing so with the Bills. Terrell Bernard tallied his 2nd fumble recovery in as many weeks, and is now the first Bill with fumble recoveries in back-to-back games since Matt Milano in Game 2 and 3 of 2021.
And Bernard almost got another interception too.
I saw that. Yeah, that was very close. So James Cook had a career-long 48-yard reception and also rushed for his first TD of the season. Can you believe that? He's with all the rushing yards. I think he was top 5 in the league. That was his first touchdown of the year because you've got Harris,
like
Murray,
you said,
and Allen.
20s, yeah.
We're on to Jacksonville. Wait, who are we playing next? They're going to London, which is going to be cool to see. Thing that sucks for me being on the West Coast. That's a 6:30 a.m. game.
It'll be kicking off right as I'm getting ready to roll out of the USPS parking lot to deliver about 130 Amazon packages.
Yeah, 8:30 in the morning for you in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
So how was the baseball game you went to yesterday?
It was great. Yeah, my brother got tickets for myself and him to check out the game 1 of the wild card between the Milwaukee Brewers and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Unfortunately, the Brewers just went down. They lost the best of 3 series tonight. They lost last night when we were at the game, and then they just lost tonight. So that caught me off guard. I forget that the wild card is a best of 3. But man, it was a great time. Went to Milwaukee. It's an hour drive with traffic. It takes longer. But yeah, parking was great there. We at the end of the game, we got in and out quick. The stadium was beautiful. They had the roof open. It was 70 some degrees, like t-shirt weather. Yeah. And I love baseball parks because you get to walk around the whole concourse, and you've got a 360 view, and you get to see all the different vantage points around the stadium with the way that the different views of the field. And so yeah, it was a fun time despite the Brewers losing, the hometown team losing. It was a good time. It was my 4th MLB stadium that I got to check off my list, and got to spend it with my brother. So that was a good time.
I know I know it's not your favorite sport, but when I found out you were going, I'm like, oh, that's cool. The game has picked up with the pitch clock. For
sure. Yeah. I think that the pitch clock was, I know it was a highly contested thing. A lot of debate as to, I think it's like one of those sports where it's such a historical sport, and it's America's pastime. That's been the long time motto of the sport. But I think something like that was definitely needed. I'm all for the clock on the pitch clock.
Well, if we wrap up the Bills hosting the Dolphins massacre, I'd like to say that Tyreek Hill, who had 1 rush for 14 yards, was held to 3 receptions for 58 yards. And now, will you believe that in 6 games against Buffalo in his career, he only has 31 receptions, that's like 5 a game, for 284 yards and 1 touchdown. 1. 2017, 2020, 2021. Casey, we're talking regular season. He had 7 of 11 for 41, 3 of 3 for 20, 7 of 13 for 63. 0 for touchdown.
13 seconds game was a different story, but
you're also talking playoffs. But for the regular season in 6 games, that's what we've got. We need to take care of him in the playoffs. But that we know that there was a lot of mistakes in that. Now 3 games with Miami, 2 of 4 targets, 33 yards, 9 receptions on 13 targets, 69 yards, and a touchdown. That was in December, and then October 1st, 3 of 5 for 58. I'll take that. Obviously, we know how to shut him down. It helps when you're rushing the passer.
No easy feat to shut down pretty much the fastest dude in the league. Although Devin Achane might be the second fastest dude in the league.
He's right up there with Waddle. I mean, they're fast. And speaking of Devon Achane, however you want to say his name, some people were calling him
Achane.
Achane does like Achane. I think he just didn't want. Yeah. Good. No, it doesn't. But he had 8 rushes for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's a little skewed, though, because the Bills held Miami to 20 rushing yards in the first half. And then the second half, after going up 31-14, they let off the gas a little bit. On defense, they weren't as aggressive in the second half. And, of course, they racked up 100 yards and got those numbers. So now we look bad against the run. But really, I thought they did pretty well against the run. And overall, against the pass, Tua did end up having 282 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. But as we discussed, he was sacked 4 times. And overall, I don't think anything else stood out. Waddle had 4 receptions for 46. Braxton Berrios had 6 receptions for 1 touchdown, 43 yards. And that's really it.
Well, another unbelievable performance by McDermott in this defense, man. Like getting pressure on one of the quickest release passers in the league, and they were on fire. It was a huge statement win in Buffalo amongst the fans on a beautiful day.
We move on to week 5 with the Bills, quote unquote, hosting the Jaguars, but in London at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is the stadium that the Bills are modeling their new stadium after. It is a 9:30 a.m. Eastern game on Sunday, October 8th. It'll be on NFL Network. You've got Rich Eisen and Kurt Warner and Jamie Erdahl. It's going to be a cool game. Of course, we have to wake up early for it, but it's the 2-2 Jaguars against the 3-1 Bills. We can do a breakdown on that.
You want to know how much the Bills draw attention compared to other teams? The Jaguars-Falcons game last week, tickets were going as cheap as $14, $13.
Holy cow.
Now that the Bills are in town, cheapest tickets are more like $70, $80. So it's a big difference.
That's because Bills fans travel, and there's actually quite a few Bills fans, surprisingly, over there. I'm glad to hear that, and I look forward to the game. Well, I did see a photo shared by my cousin Cody's girlfriend, longtime girlfriend, Lindsay. She runs a store that she started called Leveled Up Buffalo. It looked like Josh Allen's mom and Haley Steinfeld went in there and bought stuff, and Josh's parents had been in there before, but it ended up on people.com anyway, and they did a write-up on it because Steinfeld was there. Now, she had a Wyoming Cowboys sweater draped on her, and Chelsea thought, oh, that looks like it's her size or something. But I'm like, I don't know, maybe she got it from Alan's closet, and maybe she's fully invested now, and it's not just a short-term thing. She still thinks that it's hers. You know what? All the merrier. Maybe Josh did order something for her, and that shows you how much he's committed to her, not just the Buffalo Bills.
Well, was it? Wait, the picture of him crouched down looking at rings at a jeweler in Toronto didn't give it away that he's fully committed.
He was with Brittany for years, and I know she went to a different college, and they'd known each other since middle school or high school, and he had like played hard to get for a while, and whatever, it didn't work out. Brittany Williams out, Haley Steinfeld in. I just heard her singing on the Sesame Street jingle earlier. Before,
hey man, it's always sometimes a fresh beginning. That's all you need. Sometimes things are just meant to end and new things are meant to start.
I'm starting to think that this is something that's going to stick. And now I know it's not Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, but I think Steinfeld is more up his alley. I think it's a good match. I think maybe she might have some of his kids someday.
Who knows, man? Hey, things will work out. They tend to work out.
Well, shout out to her. Shout out to Leveled Up in Buffalo. Anything you want to add to that recap? Any big news in fantasy before we go?
Man, shoot. It's getting late, but I always am down for talking a little fantasy football. Quick summary of a little over a month in now of the season. I'm 3-1 in your league, and I'm 2-2 in my SDSU college league. So not bad, not a bad start. I've got some regrets, some early season regrets. I passed on CMC in the first round to take Bijan. That's not looking good right now. Now Bijan's no slouch, but he's sitting on an Atlanta Falcons offense that is sputtering right now behind a quarterback in Desmond Ridder leaves much to be desired. So unless CMC gets injured, he was clearly the running back to get in the first round. So I passed him up. I also, in my SDSU league, I decided to take DJ Moore in the third round instead of Josh Allen. That makes me lose some sleep at night.
You could have gotten Josh in the third round.
In the third round, I took DJ Moore.
Oh my God, what a mistake!
And then I think it was like a pick or two later, my buddy Dom in that league picked up Allen.
Ask him if he'll trade you for DJ Moore now.
No.
In the Yahoo league that you're in of mine that I've been doing forever, I wanted Allen, but he went first overall, followed by Mahomes number 2. It's wacky with a bunch of Bills
I told
fans.
myself going into the drafts this year, both drafts, your league and mine, I told myself that I wasn't going to overpay for Allen. Like I could have got him in the early third, but my plan was to go with Trevor Lawrence because I knew that I could get Trevor Lawrence in the 5th to the 8th round, and I could get him at a cheaper value. Now that's not looking great because Trevor Lawrence is not looking great, and I don't know what's going on with Doug Peterson and this Jacksonville offense, but I hope it continues this week in London. But from a fantasy perspective, don't know what's going on. All I know is Trevor Lawrence is like the 17th to 18th ranked fantasy quarterback right now, and I had to pick up Jordan Love in my SDSU league because I'm losing patience and I need to keep on putting up points because it's competitive. Like in my SDSU league right now, it used to be where like 100 was the benchmark. You get 100 points, maybe 105 points, you're going to have a chance every week. The 110 to 115 is the new 100, the way people are scoring in the league. So it's competitive, man. So you can't have performances like Trevor Lawrence has been putting up, but I will not be starting Trevor Lawrence this week. I will be starting Jordan Love because I think that Trevor Lawrence will struggle against this cold front second edition that is being formed in Buffalo right now.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. My teams have been similar where I've made some good. I think both of my teams are really good. It's more about injuries and it's more about missing a couple opportunities. Like I did CBS this year for Chelsea's family. I picked Josh Allen in that one. And there's a Bills fan actually who I've met at the Bills Backers Bar. You've met him too, who is Chelsea's cousin's neighbor. So it's like he was at the live draft and I somehow got him. He was wearing a Kincaid jersey. And
what round did you get him in that?
Second. I had the turnaround in first and second round, and I think that's a good question. I could pull it up, but I want to say he was my second. He might even have been my first pick, knowing that, and 2 picks later I was getting another pick. But in my CBS league, I've got Allen, Dameon Pierce, Madison. I had Chubb, who's out, and I missed out on Ford. I've got Pitts, who hasn't done crap. I've got Waddle, Drake London, Moody, who's been a solid kicker, and the Ravens defense, which is solid. My backup quarterback is Richardson. And then for depth, for running back, I have A.J. Dillon and Akers, which hasn't done me anything. And on bye, I've got Evans and Lockett. And I just picked up Jamison Williams. So that's my entire roster. I feel like
Pierce, you got to have patience with Dameon Pierce. I drafted him in my SDSU league, and I think the 6th round. And it's, I went with Bijan as my number 1, and then I needed a number 2 because I was going to go wide receiver heavy. So I picked Dameon there. His offensive line is starting to get healthy again. He's got a minor knee injury right now. It looks like it's just something that they're just being precautious with. He'll come around. I think honestly, the second half of the season is going to be the boom for Dameon Pierce. I think if you hold on to him, you'll be rewarded. I know a lot of people are trading him right now, but unless you got Bijan, anyone else on that Atlanta Falcons team right now is frustrating the hell out of you in fantasy. And even Bijan's frustrating because he's not getting touchdowns. And it's all because of he's on a shitty offense. And so, but despite that, he's a once in a lifetime generational talent, and it shows because he's still averaging like, I think 15 or 16 PPR fantasy points a game. But that Falcons team on the offensive side's an absolute mess right now. And so is the Bears. The Bears are an absolute mess. The Broncos, just the Saints. You got Derek Carr with a shoulder injury trying to sling the ball. Chris Olave, who I had high on all my draft lists this year. I've got him on all my teams. He struggled last week, and part of that was due to just the ineptitude. I mean, there's just so much fantasy talent right now that's just getting screwed by, bad quarterback play, injuries, just offenses that can't seem to get it going.
So in my Yahoo league, I didn't get Allen, as I mentioned, but I did get Lamar Jackson, and that seems to be paying off. He's doing just fine. He's had, OBJ go down. He's had other guys, but he's averaging over 30 yards after the first week against Houston, which was a weird one. But he's done well.
How about Nico Collins and CJ Stroud?
Stroud is just a stud. I mean, he is hands down so much better at quarterback. I don't know what they thought Bryce Young was going to be compared to CJ Stroud.
I called that. Remember when he got drafted? I told you. I mean, not that it was like some wizard for saying that. It just seemed like Bryce Young had bust written all over him.
I mean, I know that he's had his height thing criticized, but as far as an athlete, he just doesn't seem like a leader. Like he's just kind of
very cerebral, very smart football IQ. But yeah, I think the Houston Texans are a kind of a storyline that needs more attention so far this season. Like they were not expected to be very good, and they're actually competing week in and week out. So
good for them.
Nico Collins is an absolute stud. That he's just been waiting to blow up. I mean, he's dealt with some injuries, and now finally with a competent quarterback, and he's healthy. He looks like fully the wide receiver one that they drafted him to be. Yeah, that's been a pleasant surprise for fantasy owners.
My other guys are that I've made several trades, a number, probably 7 or 8 in this league, as you know.
You don't say.
So I've got Jackson, I've got AJ Brown, Jalen Waddle, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, I've got Alvin Kamara, I've got Hawkinson, I've got Jerry Jeudy, I've got Goddard as my backup tight end, I've got Moody and Baltimore again, and then my bench, I've got Javonte Williams, who just got banged up a little bit, I've got Amari Cooper, who I traded for, I've got Rashawn Johnson, I've got Richardson as my backup quarterback there too. I just traded for Zay Flowers. I picked up Warren from you, and that's my team. And I feel like that's very steady. When I went to Roto Trade and I plugged in my teams and I looked at what they expected, they were both 11-2, and they expect me to make it to the championship. And of course, anything can happen. Injuries happen. Numbers go astray. Last year I was stacked as well, and I ended up finishing third, which whatever. But I got to beat Kevin Moore this week. He's the one I'm playing. He's my college buddy who we took acting classes together. He's very talented. He is a Jaguars fan, and it's the Buffalo Bills versus the Jaguars in London, and his team name is the Original Jag Officer, and I'm the Buffalo Bisons. That's we got into fantasy talk, and now we're 20 plus minutes past that, and I know you got to go to bed. It's almost 10 here. It's midnight there. So let's wrap it up.
I had to get some fantasy talk out of my system, man. We haven't done a fantasy corner here, so
I know that's true.
Had a lot to get off my chest.
Any final words for Bills Mafia?
I'm just happy to see all the fans that were there on Sunday get to have a great early fall day in Orchard Park. You couldn't have asked for anything better. Yeah, with the way week 1 went and the rebound that we've gotten to see, the way things were leading up and all the talk about this matchup, it just couldn't have gone anything. Darren was telling, I was talking to my brother Darren about it, and he's like, what an awesome game when it's kind of decided in the second half and you kind of have that fourth quarter to just like party, like the whole stadium just turns into one big party because everyone knows the result. It's not in limbo. There's no stress. It's like we just took down one of our division rivals that's just been getting all the talk. So what an awesome thing to have, just a beautiful day for fans. That's what football is all about, man. I'm sure the tailgating was spectacular. I'm sure that there was plenty, like I said, plenty of Labatt's crushed, some tables crushed. Hopefully some hydration breaks were taken. But yeah, man, it was what a great weekend for Bills fans. I hope this momentum continues, man. Like, it's been one heck of a 3-4 game stretch here. So
for sure, let's let that continue overseas. Okay, I don't have any final words other than let's go Buffalo. So that's going to do it for this edition of The House That Allen Built. I'm Scott Kinmartin. With me, almost always,
Greg Vollmer.
We'll see you next time. Let's go.
Let's go Buffalo.
Okay, that's never going to work. Damn you.
You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen. Yeah. What? You got me feeling like I'm Josh. Okay.